Hi, my name is Steve Schwalbe, and I am an adjunct professor at Columbia College teaching American government and international relations. If you have tuned in to this video to be entertained, the topic today is the future of God. As such, it will be much more enlightening than entertaining. One way to determine God's future would be to examine what relevant academic disciplines have concluded on the topic. Christopher Knight, a professor of religion at Cambridge University, found that, quote, when studying the evolution of religion, it is also intrinsically interdisciplinary in nature, unquote. In academia, several fields address the evolution of God and religion, including theology, sociology, biology, and physics. By analyzing the perspectives of each of these selected academic fields about God and religion, we might better determine what the future of God looks like. Beginning with theology, it is the systematic study of the nature of the divine. Doug Campbell, a professor of religion at the Duke University Divinity School, proposed that, quote, theology is the language that claims literally to speak accurately about God. Hence, theologians sometimes refer to it as God talk, unquote. Most theologians believe that God is omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent. Recently, some theologians declared that God doesn't know the future, just the past and the present. As such, the theology field has a relatively new evolution regarding God relating to time. This evolution is called open theism and has naturally been met with considerable resistance. According to open theism, God does not know the future, perhaps to include God. And while God's existence is constant over time, people's perception of God is constantly changing. This changing perception follows human evolution and drives major changes in beliefs and church doctrine. One significant theological movement during the 20th century was the declaration that God was dead. German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche believed that God was, quote, pitiable, absurd, and a crime against life, unquote. There are two explanations for this observation. First, the world's suffering throughout history led many people to conclude that God does not exist, explaining how a benevolent, all-powerful God allows suffering and evil to occur, especially among animals and children, is known as theodicy. Second, advances in science and technology have created a new spirit of autonomy and independence, which led people to declare independence from God. Turning to sociology, sociologists have diverse perspectives on the future of God and religion. It is essential to note that sociology itself does not make predictions about spiritual matters, but rather observes and analyzes social phenomena. Early on, God and religion helped humanity survive significant environmental challenges. Kenneth Cardone, a professor at Washington State University, found that as humans evolved to become more scientific, they have needed religion and God less. Robert Wright, a professor of philosophy at Princeton University, believed that two positions dominate the discussion of virtues of religion. One, people who think religion brings social cohesion, and two, people who think religion is a tool for social control. Neither perspective is accurate today. Clearly, social order is maintained without the power of religion. And while faith can bring communities together, it also threatens global social stability with conflict and chaos. The bottom line is that general trend in sociology supports secularism, the separation of church and state, prevailing over religious persistence. Societies around the world continue to modernize, which in turn have seen the downsizing of religions and the loss of faith in God. All religions in America continue to see significant decline in followers. Even the number of Christians in America has been decreasing over time. As well, the trends for people believing in God and heaven continue to decline. Turning to biology, Richard Dawkins, a professor of evolutionary biology at Oxford University, views the world through the lens of natural selection and evolution. From his perspective, there is no empirical evidence or scientific proof for the existence of God or any supernatural being or deity. There are several reasons why Dawkins does not believe in God, including evolutionary biology, the problem of evil, theodicy, The critique of religious beliefs, Occam's razor, and cultural and psychological factors. Dawkins applies the principle of Occam's razor to the existence of God, which suggests that the simpler explanations are generally better than the more complex ones. From this perspective, invoking the existence of a deity to explain the universe adds unnecessary complexity without providing satisfactory answers. Dawkins sees the diversity and complexity of life as products of natural processes that do not involve divine intervention. He argues that religious beliefs are often irrational and harmful, perpetuating superstition, dogma, and intolerance. He concluded that God's existence is not something hard scientists such as biology can prove. Finally, in the academic field of physics, the relationship between physics and the concept of God has been debated by theologians, philosophers, and scientists for centuries. This debate encompasses both the scientific inquiry into the nature of the universe and metaphysical considerations regarding the existence and nature of a divine being. Some people believe the Big Bang as evidence of a creation event orchestrated by a divine entity, known as intelligent design, although others argue the scientific explanations suffice to describe the universe's origins. In his book, The Grand Design, Steve Hawking argues that the laws of physics, rather than a divine creator, were responsible for the creation of the universe. He wrote, quote, "Because there is a law such as gravity, the universe can and will create itself from nothing. Spontaneous creation is the reason there is something rather than nothing, why the universe exists and why we exist," unquote. Now let's turn our attention to souls. To begin, a soul is considered the essence of a person. The soul is a spiritual, immortal aspect of an individual created by God and endowed with qualities such as consciousness, morality, and free will. A person without a soul is considered dead. The relationship then between souls and God is a central concept in many religions and philosophical traditions. The relationship between souls and God is often depicted in terms of dependence, accountability, and divine providence, with souls ultimately accountable to God for their actions. In many religious traditions, the destiny of the soul is closely linked to the relationship with God. Concepts of salvation, redemption, and spiritual liberation are often revolve around the soul's journey toward union with God. For example, in Christianity, the doctrine of salvation through Jesus Christ emphasizes the reconciliation of human souls with God through faith and redemption from sin. Similarly, in Hinduism and Buddhism, the goal of spiritual enlightenment involves transcending the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, samsara, to achieve union with the divine or liberation. Given the connections of souls to God, let's examine the viability of souls from a scientific perspective. To begin, Sean Carroll, a professor at Johns Hopkins University, explained that quantum field theory, there is one field in the universe for each type of particle. As such, that there was some sort of life after death, and quantum tests would reveal soul particles. They have not. This indicates that there is no way to allow the information in our brains, such as our souls, to persist after death. This means that it's strictly a matter of faith whether or not souls exist. Turning to neuroscience, it is the only hard science field that directly researches souls. Functional magnetic resonance imaging, or functional MRI, measures brain activity by detecting changes associated with blood flow techniques. This has generated a boom in neuroscience research. Neuroscience continues to discover and account for the neural correlates of consciousness, NCC, within the brain. Analogous to diminishing the belief in God over time, the brain is replacing the soul as prevailing explanation for consciousness. According to Monica Grady, a professor of planetary and space science at the Open University, quote, "Science requires proof, and religious belief requires faith. Scientists don't try to prove or disprove God's existence because they know there isn't an experiment that could ever detect God. And if you believe in God, it doesn't matter what scientists discover about the universe," unquote. In conclusion, all four academic fields indicate a diminishment of faith and belief in God going forward, primarily due to scientific discoveries. In theology, the field is split among theologians who believe God is all-powerful and those who believe God is not omnipresent. As well, people have questioned how a benevolent God could allow evil to occur throughout humankind's history. In sociology, religion was essential for social cohesion and control in earlier times. That is no longer the case today. Finally, religious persistence is being overcome by increasing separation of church and state. In biology, there is no empirical evidence or scientific proof for the existence of God. Finally, on a macro level, the laws of physics, rather than a divine creator, are responsible for the creation of the universe. On a micro level, one's alleged soul is created by God and endowed with qualities such as consciousness, morality, and free will. Quantum tests have not revealed soul particles. This means it's strictly a matter of faith whether or not souls exist. The bottom line is that the academic fields explored here determine that it is really just a matter of faith whether or not God exists. As such, the future of God is analogous to a sunset in the course of human history. I have written a book about the future of God covering this material in detail that was published by the same name in 2025 by Whip and Stock. I also have a Facebook page called The Prophet if you would like to dialogue further with me on the topic. Finally, you can email me at theprophet.0001@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Take care. Stay safe.